Seriously? Oh, no way. That's backing away. Oh, that wasn't good. Hi, I'm Greg. Welcome to my channel. Another old guy in a garage with a lathe and a mill to show some basic milling operations. But to show those operations, obviously I needed to invest in some camera equipment. So I bought this Sony ZV-E10 that I'm filming on right now. I put the ZV-E10 in a small rig cage, and that small rig cage has an Arca-Swiss mount built onto it. Arca-Swiss is a quick disconnect standard. The other one would be Manfrotto. And then this is mounted onto a gimbal, a Crane M2S gimbal that I'm filming on. Now the gimbal itself has a quick disconnect system, but it's totally incompatible. It's sort of a proprietary thing. And I wanted to have a mount that I could put my camera directly onto the mount to keep it all as compact and as lightweight as possible. So this video is going to be about just machining that little bit of a mount. I've got a little small tripod here with an Arca-Swiss mount on it. Full-size tripod, an Arca-Swiss mount on it. Over at the lathe, I've got 2 Arca-Swiss mounts for different angles. And over at the mill, I've got a Noga Big Boy with an Arca-Swiss mount on it. I'll probably put another Arca-Swiss over here. Okay, I'm filming this on my iPhone 10 now. The quality's not going to be great. Out of necessity, because here's my real camera. My 4K camera mounted on my gimbal mount. So this is a Sony ZV-E10 in a small rig cage to protect it. Sitting on that Arco mount, which is then sitting on the cage's mount. So it lifts it up. And because of that lift, I've had to lower this, to get it to balance. It's here, it's sitting here balanced. I've had to lower this adjustment on the gimbal pretty much as low as possible. It's at the end stop there. So it'll balance. And to give me clearance of this knob, I've had to move the Swiss mount out, and then this gimbal mount as right as almost as far as possible to give me side-to-side balance, right? And because of that, we get interference here, and we get interference here because the cage is sitting so low. So I think we can do a whole lot better than that. By lowering the camera down, making a new mount for the bottom of it, get that camera down where it should be, then this adjustment doesn't have to be so far down, and then this thing should clear, and we should have a lot more freedom of movement, plus be sturdier. Okay, let's get on with it. I'll start here by removing the original gimbal quick disconnect mount. I say it's proprietary. Then this little safety screw at the bottom of the slider has to get removed, so this part will slide off all the way. Tiny screw to save. And remove that part. This is the clamp that I'm going to be duplicating in my own machining. Here I am just saving the screw so I don't lose it. I've learned my lesson. Cutting off a piece of aluminum here to make that plate out of. And here it's just cutting off the bandsaw. You've seen bandsaws a million times. Not quite tall enough to fit this piece in, so I had to flip it over, finish it up. Then I scribed it on a piece of metal right there, cut it out with a portable bandsaw, and now we'll entertain you with some music here for a little while. Okay, so comparing to the original Arca-Swiss plate, it looks like it's common that on plates they put a little depression in the center. I guess that's to clear any kind of bolts that might be hanging down from the fastening. On the bottom of my camera it doesn't have such a thing, but just in case, I think it's probably a good idea that I clear some room here. So I'm going to go down 60 thousandths for 3/4 of an inch wide. So using my DRO here, I found the center of this, where the plate sits center rather. And I'm going 0.125 either side of that with a 1/2 inch 2 flute end mill. So a 1/2 inch plus the 0.125 on each side will give me 0.75, which is what I want. I'm down 60 thou, so here we go. And that's done. So here I'm just using a standard Arca-Swiss plate to test the fit of that base that I've machined. And here's the completed base so far. It's getting pretty close. So off camera I just cut that block exactly in half, and now I'm just going to square it up. One more surface to square up here on both of them. I'm using a 45-degree reverse chamfer here to cut that Arca-Swiss mount in the clamping jaw that's going to clamp on the base plate to the camera. Okay, here I've got a 1/2 inch mill set up again to cut out that little notch out of the base plate. Little wonky setup here. This is an order of operation thing. I should have done this first. I've had to use a couple of parallels here just to bulk it up to clamp it in there. Got my DRO set up on the x-axis here. I'm going to start here at the edge. There's no precise place it has to be, but it's a nice looking place at the edge here where the camera mount borders from there to there on the camera base itself. So I'm going to start there, and then the the width of this piece was measured at 1.83, so I've got my DRO set up. I'm going to stop here at 1.85 or 6-ish minus the 1/2 inch, so 1.36 I'm going to stop at. So here we go. DRO here coming up on 1.5. This corner, make it square, and that'll do it. So now I've got my little clamp part mounted in the vise here. I initially put it on parallels, and then I banged out this parallel so I don't drill into it when I drilled here. I've done some edge finding on the thickness of this piece. I didn't say before, but when I cut this piece off the other piece in half, this one ended up being just ever so slightly larger, so I used the large dimension here. So it should have been a 1/2 inch, but it's a little more than a 1/2 inch. So when I took the 0.2 off here, I'm left with 0.32 instead of 0.3. So I've already edge found here and come up 0.16. So I'm on the center line here. Now I want to find the center line here so I can move out equally from both sides. Move over till that thing just bumps into it. And bang, 0 the X. Bump into it again. Of course I've deburred these edges before doing this. There it is. And now I do my 1/2 X. 1/2 X it is. So now I come over to 0. And right there is exactly halfway. So I'm going to now space out equidistant from there on both sides, just for something that looks nice. And then I'll mount my drill and start drilling. So let's see what looks nice here. Don't need that on anymore. I'm going to guess right about there looks pretty good, and that's, let's just make it an even number to make it easy. Let's make it 0.60. Seriously? Well, luckily, here we are back again. I was able to save that part. The reamer had gone almost to the very exit. It actually broke right at the exit point. I wasn't able to pull it out, but I was able to use that 4mm drill rod from the other side to bang it back out. It was a straight fluted reamer, so it came straight out. Didn't seem to damage the hole too terribly. Now I realized what happened, why it broke, is I drilled the holes to 3.5 and I'm trying to ream a 3.5 hole with a 4mm reamer, and that's just probably asking too much of it for one of these cheap Chinese reamers. I probably should have drilled it to a bigger than, you know, almost 4mm. I just don't have, well, I guess I could have probably found something in my SE drills to be a little closer. Anyway, here's a recovery. I've got a 4mm drill in here now. I'm realizing these holes really don't need to be such precise fit on those drill rods. They, you know, a little slop is actually okay on this particular case because it's going to tighten up as it meets the camera. Certainly the original part that I showed you there earlier, the slotted part, isn't that precise in its movement up and down. It's got some play to it. So anyway, I'm just going to drill these guys to 4mm and be done with it. I don't have a 4mm reamer anymore anyway. I have to order another one. So here we go. Oh, and I had the foresight to put a, what do you call one of these guys? A stop here before I took this other piece out, so I'm still in the same location. So this is probably already 4mm. Here we go, the 4mm drill. Yeah, it didn't do a thing. Looks like a clean hole, 4mm hole there. So now I can go over to my other position, which is 60 the other way from center, and line it up. I'm using both handles, helps get real precisely here. You can't see the DRO, but it's just mounted to the right of my mill here. And there's 60 on the other side, so this should be lined up there, and sure enough it is. We'll just drill it out to 4mm. And that was a much easier job than trying to use a reamer. Done. I quite often just leave a small chamfer bit in my, it's one of those zero flute chamfer bits in my mini drill press here, just because I'm doing this all the time, so it makes the job easy. So here it is sitting in here. I'm just going to chamfer these holes that I just drilled out. Wailing away on that 4mm drill rod with my hammer has mushroomed the end a bit. Gives me an excuse just to show my lathe setup here. It's an MX 210V Chinese mini lathe. And hopefully this camera placement's going to work. First time for everything. Off the carriage. It's a drill rod, so it's pretty tough stuff, of course. But that seems to have taken care of it. So now I've got my base set up in a vise here again with a couple of shims in here, parallels. I could do this with a DRO. I need to, you know, find the exact spots where these holes are going to line up with the base plate. And I could do it with a DRO, knowing exactly where I measured these guys from. But remember, this piece is not exactly a ½ inch. I could do the math and all that, but I think it's actually better in this case. I need to make sure that this bottom surface is exactly aligned with the top surface of my base plate, because that's what's going to do the clamping, right? I don't want it above, or the camera sit at a wonky angle. So it should be, you know, flush or even a tiniest bit below there. And I think it's better to do it by eye sitting here in the vise. And I've got a transfer punch, 4mm transfer punch. It's a nice tight fit in that hole. Well, that it belies it. It's got a little bit of slop to it. And I want to get it, you know, centered in this gap. Just, you know, nothing precise here, but I do want to make sure, I'm sure there's a very flattering angle of my face. I do want to make sure that this base is just flush or just below the surface of that base plate. So right there looks pretty good. So let's give it a whack. And I won't make you wait around for the other one. Actually, on second thought, I'm not going to do the other one because I know it's exactly 120 this side. So once I center find on that particular punch, I'll just go exactly 120 over here, and then that'll be a better measure than trying to also transfer punch that, which might make a mess. Okay, so I've got a wiggler in here now. And see about finding that center. Pretty much spot on right there. First 4mm hole coming up. If I haven't showed you my Power Z here yet, I'll do that in another video sometime. I've got Power X and Power Z, which worked out pretty nicely on this mill. So, I'll dab both spots there. Hole number 1. Oh, that's got a wobble to it. That's not right. That is not in the chuck properly. So easy to do to get these guys miss. That's a whole lot better. Okay, let's set a depth on this guy. I'm going to guess about a ½ inch should be just about fine. ½ inch right there. And now I'll move over. I'm going to turn this off and get rid of this debris. Over 60. Sorry, 120. It's 60 from each center. Now I'll cut some drill rod and I'll put it in there with some Loctite retention stuff. So this side will be retained and the other side will be sliding. Oh, I've got to drill some recesses here to fit the springs. I'll come back and do that in a sec once I find the right size drill. Because I want the springs to completely tuck away inside the base when the clamp comes down. I guess I could recess both sides. I'll figure it out. Be right back. Just to show you what I have here so far, this piece slides nicely. Jams up just a little tiny bit as it gets tight in there, but I think I can easily fix that. There's just not a lot of clearance. I mean, it really is a pretty tight fit, even with that 4mm drill. It's just as good as a reamer as far as I can see. It works pretty well. Now, where I recessed this out earlier, I forgot about it. So when I drilled in a ½ inch, you can actually see the indentation there where they've come out. So I probably should have left that alone or not gone down quite so far on that. Perfect hindsight, but this will be fine. It'll go in there solidly. But I decided, of course, not to recess the springs in here. Then it's not going to give much meat for these rods to sit into. So I'll recess the springs entirely into here. The springs actually compress. Those are them there, and they compress very, very compactly. So no problem getting a little recess on this side. Got lots of meat on that. In fact, I'll probably end up trimming this off some. And then I forgot as well. I didn't forget, but I should have done the last operation. I need to embed a piece of this 6mm drill rod in the center there too. This is what's going to tighten it up. So I'll thread this on this side halfway and put this in and thread lock it in. And then on the other side, I'll cut this off at some length and I'll work out a nice little turning knob for this to tighten it down. So I've got my base back in the vise with some parallels to clamp it in there. Just wanted to show you, this is a way I've found with a wiggler to find a center again of a hole that's bigger than the wiggler itself. I mean, at first I popped the wiggler down there to find the approximate center, and then I find just slowing the mill way down. It's about as slow as I can turn it. And just to see that the wiggler is contacting the entire circle quite evenly. If it wasn't, it would bump that side to the center and you'd see it pretty obviously. So now I'm centered on that hole again, and I know this is 120 away, and I know that 60 is in the center. And I zeroed my quill here, so I'm going to go down a 1/4 inch. I should have a 1/4 inch of meat there before I get into that recessed portion. So down here, 1/4 inch, 5.5mm drill. Well, darn, it turns out I don't have a bottoming tap in M6. I've got a 2, 3, 4, 5, and a few things even smaller. 3.5, a 2. And it got lots of them, but no 6. So no bottoming tap. It's kind of a shallow hole. I decided I'm going to go down deeper, and yeah, I'll go into my recess on the other side, but no big deal. That's just a cosmetic thing. Let me go down to 0.4. A little more clearance for my non-bottoming tap. Okay, M6 tap in place with the tap follower in the chuck. Cutting oil. And yeah, I really should get a wrench to fit this properly, but this will do the trick. Okay, now I have the clamp part mounted in the vise upside down. I've taken off one of the parallels so I don't drill into it. And I spent a long time finding, the perfect center of this, the wiggler and with a punch. I should have done this all in one setup, obviously. Drilled all 3 holes so I could guarantee their positions, but I'm close enough. Anyway, this is a clearance size 6.5 drill. I need to do a clearance hole for that rod that's going to come through here, that threaded rod. Simple enough. And then this is the side where I'm going to have a knob. I'll make that next on the lathe, a knob for that 6mm rod. And I'm going to just make a nice little indent here, so the rod will have something to push in against instead of that. Instead of being on the outside surface, it'll sort of be indented a little bit. I think it'll look a little nicer. Yeah, still got lots of meat, but it looks good. Okay, I'm set up to do a chamfer here of that clamping part to make it look pretty. I'm going to chamfer the back side, all four sides of it, all 4 edges. Now I want to mention this Speed Tiger 45-degree mill I have in here. I broke one before doing a pretty innocent part similar to this. I didn't think I did anything wrong, and it broke. I was sort of babying it. I was running at fairly slow speed and taking little tiny cuts, and it just seemed too brittle, and it broke. So I actually contacted the manufacturer, and they were nice enough to send me another one. And this is it, brand pristine out of the box, and I haven't used it yet, and I'm scared of it. But he said, don't baby it. He said, run it up as fast as you can run your mill. Well, I don't want to change pulleys. I'm going to run this at 1500. He said, that's good. Conventional cut. And I'm using coolant. I haven't been using coolant in my earlier videos just because that means the compressor's on, and the compressor, it's just a little pancake compressor, but it manages to keep up. But it comes on quite often when I'm using the air here. So I'm going to be blowing just a little mist of coolant on here. I'm blowing it out towards me, so I'm going to get wet because I don't want to get on the camera. Well, I guess that's it. So wish me luck. I'm going to try running this guy nice and fast, taking a not an aggressive cut. It's quite a light corner cut here. And you're going to hear the compressor come on, I'm sure. So here we go. Now, that's probably not enough cut. I'm going to move it over just a bit. That's not even going to leave a mark. Oh, it's not bad. Not bad. Maybe just a little tad more. Just a tad more, just to make it look a little deeper. Go down just like that. And still on the, yeah, alright, here we go. It's looking beautiful, not complaining, it's making nice proper sounds. It was when it broke too, that's the weirdest thing. It didn't make any warning, it just broke. Maybe the clue is to run it faster speed like this. There's the compressor. There it does that. I'll turn it down in editing. Oh, that's a beautiful finish. Okay. Maybe Mr. Speed Tiger was right. Now I want to line this up. Pretty sure how to turn corners. Anybody got a clue on how I turn corners properly? I don't know what there's a mathematical formula to do this or what, but I just have to eyeball it. Looks pretty good. Maybe a little deeper actually. really be taking it towards here. There we go. And that looks pretty good. And on this side, start off small and add some as I need to. Yeah, how did I do for the corner lineups? Wow. Not bad for an amateur. Alright, we've got the clamp in place again. Front facing up, there's the groove. I just want to, this is where the springs are going to recess into, so I'm just finding the center again using that wiggler technique, and I think that's pretty darn close. These don't have to be dead accurate. You know, there's some slop in those spring recesses anyway, but I like to get it close just for looks wise. Okay, a 6mm end mill in here now. Cut some depressions for the springs. And I'm just going to touch off here and zero out my quill zero. And I'm going to go down 200. Okay, starting into the knob, I have some 3/4 inch aluminum, some 6061 in here. I think I'll make the knob out of aluminum because I want to keep this thing as light as possible on the gimbal. I think that's a good idea, rather than brass or steel, and not much force on it. So 3/4 inch, remember that little recess I put in there was a 1/2 inch, and it's I just measured it, it's only 120 deep, almost 130 deep. So I'll go 150 deep here after I face this down to a 1/2 inch. So this is 3/4, which is 750, down to go a little under a 1/2 inch, like 450. So that's what, 300. So 150 off each side should get me down there. So 150 off each side and 150 back. That's easy. After I face this, so let's get going. I'm going to say if I zero my X right there, it should be just fine. And now I'll turn it back on, zero my Y, and do 15, 15. All right. .466. So that will fit inside my 500 just fine. Okay, I've got my 6mm tap and my follower with all the pressure it can put on that guy. I'm going to power tap this, it's just aluminum. Okay, I've got one of these clamp type knurls. It is centered over the work. Got it on my tool post, looks pretty squared up. And put some lots of cutting fluid on here. There we go. And I'm going to clamp it down pretty nice and tight like that. And I've got my feed set up. So let me go down here about a 1/2 inch. Get us knurling first. Oh, no way, that's backing away. Okay, take two. I really cranked down on this post nut, but there is a lot of leverage there. It wants to move it off. Let's get that centered again. It is clamped down, so here we go, see if it moves. Looks like we're knurling. Engage the feed here. Knock down a little bit. Keep the feed very slow. Put it a little higher. Alright. That's feeding backward now. I've got to turn it off before I can change direction. Forward reverse on the feed. And here we go. Now coming back the other way. Cranking down hard. So I have a pretty decent knurl there actually. It's not too bad. Not too shabby. Increase my feed rate. Oh, that wasn't good. Fine. Fine. Be like that. Okay, no harm, no foul. Get it going again. Where we left off. Oh, these little accidents, right? Here's what not to do. Pretty nicely, I think. Leave it alone. So I've landed that way. So here we are so far. I just put this these pieces together just to show what's going on here. So everything works fine. These guys aren't fastened in yet. This guy is. I just got to figure out how long there's going to be and then set them in there. So anyway, it works well. The springs are in there and they recess into the thing properly. I find out when I mount the camera in here, the camera I'm actually recording this on, mounts in here just fine. And these two blocks here keep it from sliding out even if this is loose. So you got to set it in, you know, like that. That's by design. And to get it out, this has to be open just about that far. Just so these guys are just clearing that area there. So that's really the only movement there is. And when the camera's clamped in completely, this thing is, I mean, it's just perfect. This just has about that much gap. So it's just, you know, it's pretty much ideal the way it is right now. And so I've got to clean up all my marks. You can see where these drills came into the recessed area here, but it's no big deal. It's just appearances there. Nothing's going to come down there. The camera actually sits on the top face here and it clamps into there. So basically I have to cut these guys off. I'm going to cut this guy off right there. I'm going to leave this guy a little longer so I can put a C-clip or an E-clip on there to keep this guy from popping off completely if the nut is removed. Alright, back on the lathe. This is one of those 4mm rods that's used for the clamping mechanism. And I've got a little black mark there where I want to put a E-clip to keep it from coming off, to keep the clamp from coming off. Now I don't have anything anywhere near that narrow to cut this little groove. I took a cutoff blade and ground it down considerably, maybe not thin enough, but I'm just going to give this a try. I've never done this before. A little smaller. Yeah, that's perfect. That's a snug fit. Okay, this is the other piece mounted in here now with the black line on it. I actually want to cut that black line off. That's what was on the outside of the piece. I want to make it flush to the piece, so I'm going to cut that black line off. So right where I am, I think, I've got my carriage locked. Doesn't matter. Okay, so here I've got the pieces laid out here, just ready to glue together. I'm just using this Loctite 609 retaining compound. It seems to work okay for me. Make sure they're in there all the way. And then, because those springs are there, I don't want them pulling it back out again while it dries, so I just have this to hold it. It doesn't have to be tight, but just so it doesn't stress that clip that's on there. So I just wanted to show you what we have here so far. I keep it in frame here. I just give a light sanding with some 320 grit, which I actually kind of like the finish. I may powder coat this to match the other rest of the stand after, but for now I'm just going to go with this. Anyway, the mechanism is all in there, the knob's on there, and it tightens up exactly like it should. I've had this camera in here already, and it tightens up perfectly. So here I have the new jaw piece clamped in there in position with some die cam on it, so I can then scribe it. I measured the original piece dimensions here and measured the gimbal pieces. This is where it's going to clamp on right here, and that's a pretty accurate set of scribe marks there. I know they're a little sloppy, but I'm going to first machine outside those lines, and then keep trial fitting and honing in on the actual dimension as I get there. That was just kissing along the side here, taking 15th thou off the base so the clamp can come in a little tighter. So here I've got the base plate in with kind of a wonky setup. I mean, it's clamped in well, but I want to drill through at the same time the clamping plate to get it perfectly in alignment. I know I can do that with the DRO with lots of math and stuff, but this way I'm guaranteed to get it right as long as my jig holds up together here. So I've got this clamping plate put in position very squarely and held together with a couple of shims to clamp tightly against that. I've done the edge finding, I've done the calculations to say where I'm going to put that bolt. So here's the profile of the base plate. It's 0.44 at that spot. I'm going to go to a little to the outside of halfway, so 0.23. I did edge finding, subtracted the 0.1, so 0.13 out from where the edge finder was, so that's 0.23 out. I know this clamping plate is 0.51 deep, and I want to go another ½ inch beyond that, so I'll go a full inch down into this. So I've got a 5.5 because I'm going to tap this base plate with a 6mm again. Okay, here we go. Right about there. All right. Now while I'm here, I'm going to start a clearance hole for here as well. I want this to be a tight fit on that 6mm thing, so I'm going to put a 6mm bit in there. Put into the base plate. And no more. Right there. Okay, I've got my tap follower and the 6mm tap in here now. I'm going to tap that base plate hole. So here I've got the clamping jaw in here again. That's the 6mm hole for the threaded rod. Just as with the other clamping for the base clamp, I'm going to put a little recess in here for the knob. Just looks nicer. I made a little knob off camera there. Turned out very nicely. This is for the knob for this gimbal clamp. I'm going to step over. I'm going to try to leave just a little bit of the clamp on the bottom there for additional strength. I believe the camera will still fit in there just with a little bit like that left on. Okay, I think I've come up with a plan here. This is the knob, and it really only has to loosen the slightest bit to make it movable, really a quarter turn. So if I was to have a knob You know, if I were to grind that part off, what I've got marked in black, that'll let us tighten up all the way and that'll let it loosen off enough. Then that would give me enough movement on this thing. So now if the knob were bigger, much bigger, and I cut off that much, then I could make a lever out of what was left. And I could clock it in whatever direction I want to. So I think that's the next plan. I'm going to just make another knob with the biggest round hunk of aluminum that I have, and then I can, you know, figure out what I need to cut off of it to make a lever out of that round disc. And so I'm going to clock this. I'd like this lever to be, you know, completely out of the way when it's locked up to give the maximum range for the swing. So I'm going to say right about here gets it out of the way, and then down here it will be nice and loose. Right? So that's it. I'm just going to cut basically a lever like this on the milling machine. Okay, I just cut the bulk of that material off of the knob with my portable bandsaw to make quick work of it, and I just want to give a final check before I commit myself. Okay, back on the mill, I've got my little lever part with a 6mm bolt through it into a collet chuck. So I can rotate it around, and I'm going to use the mill now to make a round over here. Right. So now here is the completed lever. Looks pretty good, if out of focus. And I cut some slots in the base plate just to make it look good and lighten it up a bit, and then powder coated it. Yeah, I should have had a mask on here for sure. Hello, chef. After that, you bake it for 20 minutes at 400 in the easy bake oven, and it all melts the powder coat together. Looks beautiful. I painted the knob and lever red to match the rest of the unit. And here's the powder coating job at the end. For a first powder coating job I've ever done, it turned out just beautiful. And here's the finished product mounted on the gimbal, and it looks like original equipment in pretty much all respects. I'm very happy with it. So that's it. I know this seems like a pretty niche part here that I've made, but I think the combination of this camera and cage and gimbal are actually pretty popular in the vlogger world. So if you know somebody that wants one and you want to make a part for them, I'd be happy to share my dimensions and plans and what have you. If you happen to have a CNC machine and want to put this on a CNC, I think you could make a little money making these for that small community. And I'd love a piece myself. So my email address is here if you want to contact me. With that, I'll say thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye for now.